Good evening. It is now 5:36. I would like to call in order the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission. Are you getting the feedback?
Sure, you got a weird. Sound like you had auto-tune on.
City Clerk, would you please do roll call?
Commissioner Dolan. Commissioner Kucharski.
Here.
Commissioner Collier. Commissioner Vice Chair Ward is absent. Commissioner Barraza.
Present.
Commissioner Singh is absent. Commissioner Miller.
Present.
Chair McCoy.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. I would like to make a couple of motions. Angela, I have to make them separately for it, right? Yes. Okay. I motion for Vice Chair Ward absence to be excused today. Do I have a second?
So, yes, I second that.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Thank you. And I also would like to motion Commissioner Singh's absence to be excused for today. Do I have a second? Thank you, Commissioner Collier. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Passed. We will now begin the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please stand? Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will start with the approval of the agenda. City Clerk, are there any changes or proposed changes to the agenda?
There are no changes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Dolan. Is there a second? Thank you, Commissioner Collier. Is your mic on? There you go. Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. This item is approved. We will now move on to approval of minutes. Are there any changes or proposed changes to the minutes from March 17th, 2025?
There are no changes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I so move.
Thank you, Commissioner Collier. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Dolan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. This item is approved. We will now move on to the subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission, and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the San Joaquin River Parkway Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to the commission?
No, we just need to meet, I think, again with, waiting to hear from Director Gary on a mechanism for the Parkway Trust to have funding for improving the properties on the Parkway, and also meeting again with the Parkway to have them come and present what their needs are to get some of these properties open to the public. So we just need to keep working on that on both ends. Yeah. Hopefully the next meeting we could get something scheduled.
Okay, thank you.
They've been invited to 2 of them, I think, so far.
At least one, but I haven't spoken with them much lately, and I didn't hear anything back from Director Gary since the last meeting or so.
So, Commissioner Kucharski, we're trying to put a meeting on the calendar with the subcommittee and with Parks and Public Works. That way we can maybe get your question in front of Public Works as well, so we're all talking the same language and get you the information you're looking for. So that should be within the next week or two. We'll get that on the calendar.
Awesome. That'd be great. Looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a specific time frame, like mornings, afternoons?
We'll shoot some dates to the subcommittee to see what works best for you all as well as the city staff.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to the Cultural Arts Grant Subcommittee. Is there an update you would like to provide to the commission?
No update at this time.
Thank you. We will now move on to member reports and comments. Commissioner Barraza, do you have any member reports or comments?
Yes, Madam Chair. I have an area of interest that pertains to services for senior citizens, after-school programs also. And the reason is that I noticed that at a park that was recently approved for construction, there were no facilities for after-school programs or for senior citizens for that matter. And I don't know if there is a city policy as to what the plan is for the funding of facilities at new parks, or what is the strategy? And I actually would like to, down the road, like to request that we have a discussion on after-school programs, including programs for senior citizens. I don't know if it has to do with the fact that there is a central senior citizen facility being built in somewhere in McKinley. I don't know the exact location. But I just I kind of have learned because I, as a commissioner, continue to learn things along the way, and I learned that there are many folks in certain parts of our city, senior citizens, that don't have services. Or if they have to travel a very long distance. And I just want to get a sense of how are services for senior citizens being delivered by our city. And because I know that at some point there will be a connection to us making recommendations for the use of Measure P funds. So that's why I see the relevancy to the work of this commission. And that's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller? Thank you. Commissioner Collier?
I have nothing other than to say I hope everybody had a great day yesterday.
Thank you. Commissioner Kucharski?
Just want to say thank you for the privilege to serve on this commission.
Thank you for being here. Commissioner Dolan?
Yeah, I had the opportunity this weekend to be at two of the jewels of the Fresno Park system, Roding Park and Woodward Park. And in both cases, I think, again, I know all of the commissioners feel this way, but there is nothing like going out to the parks themselves and seeing people enjoying themselves and making the most of the facilities to reinforce the idea that what we're doing here is very important. So it's a great weekend to see that in action.
Wonderful.
Good, great. Now we will move on to city administration and park staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration have any reports or comments for the commission?
Yes, good evening, commissioners. I just want to give a big thank you to Director Aguirre and his parks team for all of the hard work that went into planning and executing a successful Easter weekend in the parks. I know it takes a lot, as well as supporting departments to make sure that many visitors are accommodated and safe and that the parks are cleaned up quickly. So I just want to say thank you for a job well done.
Thank you. We will now move on to park staff. Do you have any reports or comments for the commission?
I do. I just want to kind of add on to that. You know, a lot of work and effort goes into making this past holiday weekend a success. Not just me, but my team, many in front of us here today, but two, you know, the managers out there making sure, you know, the parks were clean. You know, some of the enhancements that were added to the parks. I just heard recently the improvements were welcomed. You know, we had restroom porters at each restroom at each regional park, you know, making sure the restrooms were stocked, making sure they were clean, making sure they were safe for our guests. So those little added details really go a long way for the community. In addition to that, you know, seeing our park rangers out engaging with the community that was enjoying our parks, you know, the safety that I heard from the the residents, as I was out walking, making my rounds this weekend in the parks, thanking us for the safety and the cleanliness of the park. So that goes a long way. But again, special thanks to our other stakeholder groups here in the city of Fresno. Public Works, our traffic engineering team, working with us to ensure traffic in and out of our regionals was safe. Our police department, as I mentioned, park rangers, as well as our sworn patrol officers. Our planning department, working with us through the parking division and those elements, and our personnel department. One of the things we did differently this year is even this morning we had another quick cleanup at 6 a.m. to make sure, the guests coming in this morning had a nice clean park. So what I heard from our residents, looks like you wouldn't even know you had 10,000 people coming through your parks. It was clean and presentable the next day. So just want to thank everybody for that. And then last order of business, just wanted to highlight Jennifer Solis over here, Division Manager, Sarah Gayton on the Program Manager side of things. Camp Fresno, you all have probably seen our social media post. As of this morning, we have 1,004 total campers registered to go up to the Sierras or to the camp this year. So we are excited for that number to continue growing. That's been open for 3 weeks now, and we've gained 1,000 potential campers. So looking forward to more numbers. And again, thank you all for your comments and your service here on this commission.
Thank you. That's awesome. Busy.
Aaron, what's the capacity for the camps totally? Do we know?
So we've done it a little differently this year. We've added some day camps, but I believe it's about 1,400 is our total capacity for this year.
Great.
Good. We will now move on to unscheduled communication. Would any member of the public like to speak on any issue within the jurisdiction of this commission? You will have up to 3 minutes. If you would like to make a comment regarding any of the scheduled hearings, comments will be taken when each item is called. Do we have anyone online?
There is no one online or in chamber.
Would you like to comment now, or are you commenting on a particular item? Camilla Sutherland?
It's just a general comment.
Okay, well, come on up.
Thank you very much. And I'm Camilla Sutherland, and I play tennis out at Roding Park, the Roding Park Tennis Club president. And we want to go with you two, Mr. Dolan and Mr. Barraza, that we are looking to get more of our junior players out there to play tennis, and the park has been a great place. As they've been resurfaced last year, the number of people out there playing has just grown tremendously. Tuesday night, all 11 courts are packed, the lights are on, everything's going very well. So we really want to say thank you to Aaron and the people that are at the parks there. We do have some questions asked, like phase 2 we heard was going to be the restrooms for the parks, and the park rangers and some of the changes that we were talking about with the lights. We have great lights there, and the restrooms are a real challenge. But I have to say, this weekend, with the people that were out there, they helped keep that place spick and span. Every time someone was in there, they were cleaning them up. And so it was well noted. But we'd like to find out, how do we help out with making those things continue, and what's the next step for the phases for the pickleball courts, the futsal? We thought we were just going to be 1 futsal court and 8 more pickleball, and then the plan that we saw was 2 futsal courts and 8 pickleball courts. So we're just kind of wondering how we can find out more about that. Also, we see that the homeless numbers have really dropped, really gone. They're not out on the side street, West Avenue anymore. But we do still see several trucks come in. Just last Tuesday, the Salvation Army mobile unit comes in and gives people food. And when they arrive, a lot of new visitors come to Roding Park to get their free services. So we're just wondering if there's we have some ideas that we'd like to share with whoever it may be. And then we've also looked at putting some new signs up on the park that say no skateboarding, no barbecuing on the courts. They've got some old ones there, but how do we go about getting some of those updated and making sure that people are seeing those? And they follow them, because we kind of ask them nicely, don't skateboard on the courts. And they've been very good about that. And we're recruiting more of the players that are coming out there to play tennis instead. And so I just want to say, we'd like to meet with some of the parks people and talk about some solutions. We're not just coming to complain.
You're not finished. You have 1 minute.
All right. But whatever we can do to help promote the courts, and we are trying to get more after-school programs with our kids. Right now, some of the high schools are practicing out there that we tried to build in with our tennis, because that's where our future is going to be. USTA, the United States Tennis Association, has come down. They met with Aaron and the ladies at the office of some ideas that they have that can make it more like the Golden Gate Park up in San Francisco that Roding's got, because they are so impressed with the green space that we have at Roding Park, and they don't like to see it. Not that it's wasted, that they want to see more things out there for everybody, seniors and kids, and we old people that are playing there all the time. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jean Anger? Jean Anger, okay. Please come up. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Jean Anger and also a member of Roding Park. And I want to say that the Roding Park Tennis Club, of which we are a part, has been in existence since 1931. We have the opportunity often to go and compete in other cities. Some a little smaller, some maybe a little higher, but we do often play at community parks, and so we like to take pictures and want to report on the possibilities that we have here to do exactly what you're saying, Mr. Barraza. That we see kids out there. I've been to parks, and these are not parks that are in the best and most elite parts of town. But you come back in the evening, they're all lit up, and kids are on those courts. We have people in our club that want to volunteer to work with kids. And so that's one of our main goals, is to get that going. Yes, we want to work on solutions with you because of the perception that people have of Roding Park. Haven for the homeless, the bathrooms, you don't dare go in there. And we preach, this is, and by far, the best courts in town. There's not a club in town that can match our courts, and players will tell you that. You've spent a lot of money to resurface those. We would like to work, yes, with the club, but also with the city to help maintain those, to make sure that they're clean, that kids aren't roller skating, etc. And final, I want to make sure that you understand that USTA has a lot of money that they are now wanting to do this very same thing to improve courts. And we're talking millions of dollars, and we want to get in on that. We want to write grants. We want to have programs, and so we can't do that unless we're partnered with this committee to be sure we're not running around doing things that may not be as a part of your plan. So we want to, like I say, work closely with you because we obviously have the same goals. Thank you.
We have one speaker online, Jade McAfee.
Hi, I didn't have a chance to review the agenda for today. I have comments related to Measure P. If it's appropriate, I can make comments now, or I can wait until it's time.
Yes, you can speak.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on 2 things related to the Expanded Access to Arts and Culture Fund. One is that the panel, the call for panelists for review of the proposed projects and general operating funds, that link was only announced via the newsletter that the Fresno Arts Council has, which is great. I receive weekly newsletters from them, which is beautiful. However, it's not something that was accessible or that to the general public, or that the general public was able to see easily. And when I called, they said, yeah, this is the only place that we've announced it. When I went to their website, I just scrolled quite a bit. There's not a separate tab or a place for people who are looking for it to find it very easily. And I think that this speaks to the issue around equity and, again, that 50% mandate. So I would really, really love if maybe someone from PRAC could just collaborate in that way and gently nudge Fresno Arts Council to make that more accessible in the future. I know last year that they announced it via socials, which was really amazing. It made it so much more accessible. The second thing is that they're rolling out approvals for the LOI, and that's beautiful. I know they're working extremely hard. However, that means that there are going to be people who have more time to submit their application than others, and I'm just wondering how that might be addressed, because it should be equitable and everyone should have the same amount of time to submit their application, and I'm just worried about how this might impact individual artists who don't have dedicated staff to complete their applications. And that's all. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
There are no more speakers.
I will now close unscheduled communication, and we will now move on to workshops. ID number 25-563, workshop for commission review and input for Measure P 2023, annual report pursuant to F. Do I have to read all that? That's a mouthful. Okay, I got the ID number in, so we good, right? Okay. Will someone from the Parks Department please begin the presentation?
Yes, just a minute while he loads. All right, thank you. All right, good evening, Chair McCoy and Pratt Commissioners. My name is Shelby McNabb. I'm an Assistant Director in the Parks Department. In today's presentation, I'm going to go through each section included in the annual report and give you a brief overview. Before we jump in, I'd like to thank Jennifer Solis, Sarah Gaitan, and all of the staff that worked to track and compile all of the information that's presented to you today. Also, you should have before you a few documents. One is a copy of the presentation, and the other is a copy of the annual report. Please note that the report and presentation published for this meeting had an error in the calculation for Spark program and overall reach, but the printed materials before you today are corrected, and the clerk will ensure that the corrections are published on Granicus for public access, which I believe he's already updated that. So you should have the correct documents in front of you. All right, so the Measure P ordinance includes language about an annual report that shall include items A through E. That's everything from the percentage of residents residing within a half mile of a park, all the way through an update on the implementation of deferred maintenance and other improvements in the city. This report includes those items, as well as relevant background information about each program, maps and figures to illustrate capital improvements, an update on the Park Ranger program, and links to budget detail and audit references that were previously requested by PRAC in prior annual reporting periods. There are some programs that run seasonally, but generally this report is going to cover the time period from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Where programs run seasonally, for example, our swim programs, we run those lessons from June through August, so everything within that season will be included in the report. So the timeline before you today will guide our reporting going forward. I'd like to acknowledge that the 2023 report was delayed, and we are working toward a shorter turnaround period to release the annual report. Our goal that we're working toward is being able to release it around January for the preceding fiscal year. But to get caught up, the 2024 report is currently being compiled and will be on the agenda this summer, which you see in the timeline presented to you. And then at which time we will be on track to turn around the 2025 report in early 2026 so that we can get at a more regular cadence for reporting. So you'll notice this one is from fiscal year 23, and then this is our proposed schedule going forward for future year reports. All right, so the fun stuff. The 2023 annual report opens with background about Measure P, an introduction to the Parks, Recreation, Arts Commission, and a short overview of the parks and facilities managed by the Parks Department to provide a little bit more context to the community. The section also highlights available amenities, identifies community centers citywide, and identifies each of the programs provided by the Parks Department. A screenshot is provided of some of the graphics that you'll see in the report. An example, one of the visuals that we've provided just to help the community get context is a map of the location of each of the community centers. Also during this time, we had 107 parks and facilities within our inventory. You'll see, and as you've seen with the highest needs update that we did, that number climbed to 110, but we'd expect that number to increase. All right, so Fresnans that live within a half mile of a park. Measure P requires a report on the number of Fresnans that live within a half mile of a park, and this section of the report provides an analysis which determines that number. So in order to determine the number and percentage of Fresnans that live within a half mile of the park, we use GIS analysis. It evaluates park access based on on-the-ground access points. So rather than drawing a clean circle, a clean half-mile circle, you'll notice in the maps that I'll present shortly kind of a fried egg shape, and that is to recognize what's actually accessible on the ground, so whether there's like sidewalks and ways to access the park versus just using that aerial calculation. So that is all done by our GIS specialist. Based on the 2023 analysis, findings indicate that 33% of Fresnans live within a half-mile walking distance of a park, and this is about 1 in every 3 Fresnans. At first glance, this would appear to be a decrease from 2022, but I want to acknowledge that the change is due to a shift in the methodology used. So in 2023, the Parks Department tied the analysis to the methodology used in the highest needs neighborhood analysis, which only counts certain types of parks included in that analysis. So we count neighborhood parks, community parks, pocket parks, and regional parks. This provides more precise baseline that future years can be compared against. And what is not included in this analysis are things like greenways, public grounds, or special use facilities that are not considered a park for the purpose of the analysis. So this creates a new baseline from which we'll be able to compare against, and it also tracks with the methodology that was used for high needs and the park categories that were updated in the Parks Master Plan. So it's really tying it all together, but it shouldn't be compared apples to apples with the 2022 report. I just wanted to draw your attention to that.
Can you turn your mic on? Thank you.
Sorry, do you know what that 2022 percentage was?
Yeah, staff will get that for you.
Thank you.
But again, these are going to be, the parks that are included in this are going to be more of your green space parks. Some of the items that were included previously may have been like a park strip, which isn't really how the community told us they thought of a park when we were updating Parks Master Plan. So I wanted to point that out so that you're not like, what happened to all the parks? So she'll get that number for you in just a minute, and we'll come right back to that. So the maps included in the report provide a visual of park access. Again, I mentioned those like fried egg shapes. Those are going to be the yellow circles around the report. And you can see that those are indicating a half-mile walk near each of the park properties. The dot pattern on the map that's on the right-hand side of this slide also overlays the highest needs during that reporting period. So the FY23 highest needs are outlined in that dot pattern, and you can see the overlay between which areas have more access and which areas have a little bit less access that were considered high needs. Do you have a question? Yeah.
Do you know our park score currently?
I don't, but we could look that up for you.
Okay. I got it. I was just wondering if you knew.
We're going through the latest process. They update it annually, and so I don't think we've gotten the latest park score back yet.
And the reason why I asked is because we have been in the 90s for a long time, so I'm just wondering, and as I look here, it seems like that we will still be in the 90s because we're 98 right now. So we still haven't closed the disparity gap that we've been trying to close since the park movement has gotten started. So just wondering, how can we address that?
And I think, Commissioner McCoy, on that note, I had the same question for the group performing that calculation. It's really kind of looking like a 3-year average, so we really expect the next year, with the amount of investment that's gone into parks this last fiscal year, to really increase that number. Now, yeah, you're right, we're still in the high 90s. Will that jump us into the 70s? Maybe not, but with the continued investment that you all are moving the Parks Department towards, I expect that to increase, but I really expect next year to see that number really move up.
Because as I look at it, you know, of course, San Francisco is a big city, so they're number 7. But then as you scroll down, you have Oakland at 52, you have Riverside at 76, and we're just as big, if not under a little bigger. So I'm trying to figure out, what is their Parks Department doing to close that disparity, to keep them out of the 90s, and what are we doing? How can we better our park system?
Yeah.
Do we have to build more parks? Do we have to provide more amenities? Because time after time, this commission has stated that they would like to see different things, especially for me. I think when we're building out new parks, and I think we had this conversation before, that it would be nice to have some type of exercise equipment around the trails. So when we have our residents, especially our seniors, utilizing the park, they'll be able to get a little workout in as well. So I know that's something that LA is doing, and it has brought a lot of beautification to the park, and a lot of people utilize that park. So I'm wondering, how can we do something here?
I think in addition to those assets that you mentioned and those improvements, it's also the investment back into the parks. You know, some of the items, preventive maintenance, you know, the resurfacing of courts. It's not adding new green space, but yet it's investing money back into those assets. We'll start seeing that pay dividends here, like I said, in probably the next year and a half, with the continued investment that we've seen the last 3 years, or going on 3 years of the parks and improvements here. So
my next question will be, when will we be done pretty much reinvesting in our parks so we can start some new investments in our parks?
yeah, so I think right now we have, just so you all know, as of, I think it was September 30th to about January 9th, we had over $50 million worth of capital projects awarded by council, which were parks related. Not all Measure P, but again, a lot of that's going into construction. So, you know, we mentioned the Roding pickleball courts, the Rotary East pickleball courts, Dolores Huerta, Las Kimber Park. You start adding all those in, that's a huge investment that took numbers of years prior to Measure P and, you know, the one-time state grant funds that we received. It took years for us to get that type of level of investment. We got that in this past year. So again, I continue to see improvements, but again, as we continue to try to leverage Measure P and expand that with additional grants and other opportunities, I really think, you know, when you say when are we gonna stop? I don't know, you know.
Not so much as stop, but when are we gonna focus, right? Because we're adding pickleball courts, right? Because that was something that was a demand from our public, correct? So like when we're building out these parks, for example, the MLK park that just broke ground, when that park was being designed, why we didn't think about adding something down the trail, you know, adding new amenities to the park to make it more accessible and more usable by the community that is serving it, right? And that goes for all of Fresno, not just West Fresno, but all of Fresno. We have regional parks that just have play structures on it and basketball courts, but it's enough green space to add these type of amenities there. So, like, what's the protocol for that?
Yeah, I think in addition to that, too, you know, the expansion of green space, as our general plan states, we need to be at X amount of acres, and we're really trying to gain towards that, too, you know, getting to some of those big Les Kimber parks, looking at some of the potential expansions of existing parks. I mean, we will get there. But yeah, I think, you know, going forward in this next fiscal year is kind of that planning process that you're talking about.
So is it possible for us not to build out any more pocket parks because they really don't serve like a regular park will, and start focusing on those type of amenities in our existing parks and our new parks?
I'm with you. You know, 0.5 acres isn't really gaining towards our overall goal. It's going to be the 8, 10 acre parks, 12 acre parks that are really going to get us to that point. So yeah, looking ahead, it really is going to be those type of planning projects and kind of setting us up for the future for the park true expansions, right? Not just adding a resurfacing or pickleball court. It's really expanding our green space.
Thank you. Commissioner Barraza.
Yes, Madam Chair. I have two questions. One, I know that on Chestnut and Butler, there is a private facility where I believe the Parks Department has some type of a relationship. It's like a senior center.
Yes.
The question, and I notice it doesn't appear on your map because it's a private facility, I would think. But the question is, how do you partnership with those type of facilities, and when can you count them and when don't you count them? Or why it doesn't appear here on your, well, the answer is that it's a private facility, but it's a partnership with city government, so why can it?
The senior numbers are counted in our totals, but that map is just community centers only, so that's why it's not reflected on that map.
Okay,
But the seniors served are counted in our overall totals of seniors served.
The community centers, and I'd like to, there may be a place where there is a definition of what exactly does that entail. But I noticed, and this map is excellent because I see in Southeast Fresno, the only, and this kind of verifies what the suspicion I had, that there are no senior centers to the east of Mosqueda Center. And I mean, just looking at this map here that you have on page 10, and the part that I'd like to know more, and maybe we're going to get into that, is what's the strategy for future construction of facilities, community centers that could include, among other things, after-school programs, also programs for senior citizens. What's the policy and what's the strategy? What's the game plan?
Well, tonight's presentation is focused on 2023, like a year in review, right? It sounds like we have a lot of items to discuss for future. But you will see projects that are in design and construction later on in this presentation, so you can kind of see the pipeline of things that are at that phase within this reporting period. And then we'll quickly present the 2024 later this summer, so you'll kind of get a sense for more in real time what projects are in the works. But I think there's always opportunities with our projects to give public input about desired amenities. And so I know there's several planning exercises happening about different construction projects and community center refurbishments. And so I think feedback would always be welcome on those projects, especially through the public engagement process. And then Commissioner Singh, the question you had about the difference in 2022 to 2023 and the park access. In 2022, including all of those parks and really any park space in the city, there were 40%, it was 40%. So I wanted to draw attention to the fact that we have focused the definition to mirror those other two documents. So you will see a sharp decline followed by in future years, it should increase as we add park space. All right.
Shelby, do you want us to let you get through your presentation?
What is your preference? Because I'm okay as we go, but
your preference of however you would like the questionings to come.
Keep going? Okay, so I'll go ahead and go, and then if you jot down your questions, we can get those at the end. All right, so next section of the report is the percentage of Fresnans accessing parks programs. So in order to determine that percentage, counts were conducted for each program using registration, observations, and sign-in data. So the table that you have before you is going to split out our total, and then I'm going to be going over the different programs individually. So in order to determine the number and percentage of Fresnans accessing parks programs, staff first pulled the population and age distribution data, which indicated that there were 551,135 Fresnans during this reporting period. We split that out into children, adults, and seniors to get a better sense of the percentage being served. Program data was collected for each program. In 2023, data collection methods improved to allow us to report on both the number of unique Fresnans participating and the total attendance data, or the number of times they came. My next slide will go over more definitions around that, but bear with me as I get through the technicalities. While this value isn't comparable apples to 2022, which reported on a combined total of unique individuals and attendance, the new method will allow the Parks Department to track trends over time. So you'll be able to see each year how things are increasing, decreasing, changing, evolving. The table presented in the 2023 report indicates that over 19,000 people participated in parks programming. They attended over 500,000 times. This reflects a reach of 3.5% of the population, with attendance reflecting the equivalent of 108% of the total population.
Okay. So is that meaning that the attendance is low?
No, we're going to go through each program so you can kind of see the differences in each of the programs and what's attended. But let me get into definitions first so you can see the difference between unique individuals or attendance. So these are some of the common terms we use when talking about program reach that are important to define. The first term is attendance or impressions. These are used interchangeably to represent the total number of times someone attended a program or activity. The values are potentially duplicate, as participants may attend multiple programs or multiple days while participating. For example, one child playing youth sports for a 6-week period would count as 6 impressions. So it's the number of times someone came. Fresnans, this term refers to individuals that live within the city of Fresno. Participant addresses are collected for many programs. When they're collected, data shows that an average of 80% of participants reside in Fresno, although some programs have much higher Fresnan participation. 80% is the average. In cases where addresses were not available or not collected, for example, during our large community events, we don't stop and ask everyone their address, of course. During our recreational swim, where we had over 30,000 swimmers, we did not collect addresses for all of those. And so we use the 80% benchmark to create the calculation to determine the number of Fresnans. Unique individuals, that is a term that we use interchangeably with participants, and it represents the total number of unique people who participated in a program or activity. It should be unduplicated, and each individual should be counted only once, regardless of how many times they attend. So you can see there was over 19,000 unique individuals, and over 500,000 attended different programs. When we talk about youth, the term is generally used to describe individuals 0 to 17. Those specific programs might have specific age requirements and be intended for certain ages. And then our senior programming refers to older adults. Specific program age requirements may vary based on funding sources. For instance, the Senior Hot Meals program is limited to individuals age 60 or older based on the federal funding guidelines. Anyone younger than that would have to pay for the hot meals based on the grant program. All right, so I know the definitions are probably less exciting, so let's get into the actual program so you can see the reach. So we'll go through each of the programs and just highlight a few items. I do want to note, though, that the report itself shares other highlights in addition to just these numbers. So you'll see other things that we accomplished during this reporting period, other percentages of growth and different information. So I encourage you to read the actual report. But the Cliff Notes version is that we served a lot of folks. Adaptive recreation, drop-in recreation, and the after-school program are on this first slide. During this reporting period, 382 Fresnans participated in adaptive recreation. Over 57,000 Fresnans signed into a community center. There were 101 activities offered citywide in addition to just our daily programming, and over 1,500 youth participated in after-school programming. All right, going on to aquatics. The aquatics program was extremely popular. A total of 2,800, almost 2,900, but 2,894 Fresnans participated in swim lessons, and nearly 25,000 Fresnans made a splash as part of our recreational swimming program. Over 3,000 Fresnans received bicycle and pedestrian safety education, and over 700 Fresno youth attended Camp Fresno. During 2023, there were nearly 100 action sports participants from Fresno, over 5,000 adults on 455 teams playing adult sports, and 557 Fresno youth playing youth sports. And again, the report contains many more highlights and a description of each program, so I encourage you to review that. The Youth Sports Fee Waiver program launched late in the 2023 season, and there were 2 remaining sports when it launched. Despite nearing the end of the sports season, 258 households were approved for the fee waiver, and that number has continued to climb since the inception of the program. I know that we are focused on 2023 today, but recently we've had seasons where 84% of participants were able to benefit from the fee waiver. So not to time travel here, but we have seen continued growth in the use of the fee waiver, and it's been a very popular program. Other accomplishments during this time period include extensive science and STEM programming citywide. We come to centers and do science clubs, events. We bring the mobile science unit out. And restarting the Senior Hot Meals program. The program restarted approximately midway through the year and enabled parks to serve thousands of meals to seniors citywide. We estimate 6,800 of them were served to Fresnans. The ONCE program, that stands for Office of Neighborhood Safety and Community Engagement, facilitated programming that was grant funded and led to over 2,500 volunteer hours. They were also able to serve over 300 community members as part of Fresno Summer Nights programming. In 2023, there were also 4 community centers used for emergency response due to sustained extreme weather. During that time, 13,000 visits were recorded at warming centers and over 1,800 were recorded at cooling centers. Additionally, the Youth Employment Program employed 91 Fresnans and coordinated over 12,000 hours of on-the-job experience for youth, participating either in youth employment or through the Mayor's Youth Job Corps program. And you'll see lots of great pictures of each of these programs in the report as well. All right, the SPARK program is implemented in partnership with Fresno Unified and resulted in significant reach at elementary schools citywide. Over 2,000 youth were served, resulting in over 367,000 impressions. Please note that an earlier version of this presentation included a higher attendance number for SPARK. This was due to a transposed number in an Excel calculation. Our apologies, but the report before you should have the correct numbers. Additionally, during this time period, our customer service team handled over 5,500 registrations and 1,500 reservations. So they have busy phone lines, especially during our peak periods, and was able to serve many customers. The community engagement team also established record-breaking outreach for the Cultural Arts Plan, receiving over 4,000 responses on the community survey and welcomed many new followers to our park's social media accounts. Okay, so that ends the section on our programs. It highlights each of the programs that we offer, and the unique individuals served, impressions. The report does include more data, as I've mentioned, so I encourage you to review each of those programs. Do we have any program-specific questions? And then I'll get into the next section of the Parks Master Plan implementation.
Yeah, I have a question. From looking at the attendees of the programs, it looks like, is it safe to say that our seniors are utilizing the programs that are available at the community centers more than our youth?
That they're utilizing it more?
Like I see senior programs and it's like 20,989, right? So does that program consist of like events that are going on at the community center for seniors?
So that's their attendance data.
Okay.
But when we look at the attendance data for the youth, it's going to be in the hundreds of thousands.
Hundreds of thousands,
Yeah, we can get that actual figure for you, but that's why the definitions, although it's kind of a boring slide, the difference between the number of unique seniors or unique youth and then how many times they're coming. But our sign-ins at our community centers across all ages are several hundred thousand, and so we can get the number of times those youth are coming for after school.
And one more question. With youth sports, we offer currently pickleball, correct?
We are not offering pickleball
Okay.
this year. We added futsal and cricket, but we do not currently offer pickleball as one of
Along
the
with
offerings.
like basketball, baseball.
Basketball, softball, flag football, which one's it? Soccer, yeah, futsal and cricket.
And my question the reason why I'm asking is because have youth showed any interest in hockey?
I don't know that we've put it out there recently.
Hockey has not been something we've heard from the community as a whole. I know there is a special group at Cary that uses the inline hockey rink, but as far as our overall program level, we have not heard the. I don't want to say the need, but we haven't heard the want for hockey in any other areas of town.
Has it been on any surveys? I can't recall seeing it on any.
I don't recall seeing, it's in our Parks Master Plan. It might be mentioned as one of the survey results. I can go look at that, but our recent surveys, I don't recall if that was something that was included or not.
Is that something that can be introduced and maybe the kids would kind of latch onto it, just like different sports, since there was a big call for futsal and pickleball? Maybe there's an interest in hockey and they just don't know. I think it'd be something that's therapeutic for them.
It is, and I can tell you at Mosqueda, I know they've run in the quad area there, they've run like an outdoor kind of hockey with nets, and it's more of like running than skating like they do at the inline hockey rink, but kind of same concept, right? A new sport, and we do try to introduce as many new sports to the children as we can. Just maybe something clicks and they find that niche, right? We want to make sure we aren't excluding programs from them. So we try to introduce as much as we can. It just, in some areas it's popular, in some areas it just may not be.
Because I know a lot of youth that are really good in sports kind of tend to go on into the professional league, and just thinking the longevity of hockey and how it brings a lot of structure and discipline, I think that would be kind of good for our youth.
And I agree, and I think, other thing we've done too is we've brought and introduced golf into the Parks Department. Over at Len Ross there in Southwest Fresno, we had our golf camp over spring break, and we'll continue that during the summer. My plan, and I've talked to Riverside Golf Course, who their operator runs the golf course for us with First Tee. How do we get that? And they're willing to travel too. So having that facility there that was really, when I came in, untapped. It has a putting green, has hitting bays in the back with the support of the flood control district. So we really kind of brought that back. We've got hitting mats, the kids are out there hitting, and just learning the rules and the basics that go into golf. And then hopefully at that point, maybe something triggers, talking to Fresno Unified, they've seen a lack of, I guess, kids interested in playing golf at some of the schools there, just overall in Fresno Unified. So trying to kind of partner with them. How do we get kids engaged in other activities than, I'm an old baseball player. My arm hurts, my knees hurt, right? Mm-hmm. Golf is something you can do into your 70s and 80s and beyond. And some of the other sports, something that they can learn a lot of great life lessons from, and friendships too. So yeah, we're always looking for new activities and sports to offer.
Thank you.
Sorry, I also wanted to ask, so I know for the 2024 report, which is coming this summer, right? Mm-hmm. If we could also get how much money has been invested into this sport, like by category, right? So whether it's, money given to the teams or like money invested into infrastructure for that sport, I think it would give us an idea of how much, for that particular season, that sport's been used by, the youth, if that's possible. If that's too much to break down, I also understand.
So one of the things you'll find later in this presentation is the total amount budgeted by category. And then we tend to move the sports around year by year. So it may be challenging to tie it exactly by facility and sport, but we do have all of the projects listed in this report as well, and we are linking it to the audit, which would tell you how much was spent on that specific project. So we'll see what information we have available to get as close as we can to something along those lines. And then Chair McCoy, the question you had about youth attendance, based on the data we have available, it would appear that there were 33,000 visits of youth during this reporting period. We do have some other visits that are not age specific. Again, we're working on improving our sign-ins, make sure everyone puts their age, but 33,000. So when you compare that to the 20,000 seniors, we would say that youth are utilizing it a bit more with their impressions.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask you something? It's not about sports, but this senior program, it's at the meals, their lunch or or dinner?
Their lunch. We offer lunch.
And
yes.
They're at all the community centers.
They're not at all community centers. They're at 6 locations. We are contracted through FMAAA, which is the Fresno Madera Agency on Aging. They provide grant funding to offer it at several of our meal sites. So we're offering that at 6 locations currently.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I know I'm getting us off track, but I just wanted to check in on the programs as we move into the next section of the report. So we will go into the Parks Master Plan implementation portion of this report. This section provides an update on the implementation of the Parks Master Plan. Just to orient you to the section so that you can review it, I won't be going over every single goal and every single table for you tonight, but just wanted to orient you on a few things. So a summary of the Parks Master Plan's 9 goals is provided in the report, along with tables that track the implementation of the plan's goals to fund, maintain, improve, expand, secure, connect, partner, advocate, and celebrate parks. Each goal is categorized as either not yet started, in progress, implemented, or ongoing. As you read through the report, you'll see that the majority of goals have been implemented or are in progress as of 2023's report. The majority of goals are also ongoing, meaning that they remain ongoing goals that are kept front of mind as we complete our work. So many of the things outlined in the master plan is not really a one and done. It's an ongoing activity that we need to consider as we operate and maintain and implement programming in the Parks Department. So in your actual report, you'll see many pages with each of the tables, and we plan to stick to this format so we can kind of show progress over time on the implementation. All right, also providing you an update on the implementation of the Active Transportation Plan. This information is provided by the Department of Public Works, who tracks Complete Streets implementation data and reports on progress on an annual basis. The Measure P report highlights new and improved pedestrian and bicycle facilities that are funded in part by Measure P funding. Highlights during this reporting period are pictured in the report and generally include construction of 30 new crosswalks, 11 miles of new sidewalks, 7.5 miles of sidewalk repair, over 10 miles of trails, and over 12 miles of bicycle facilities. Also, over 1,000 new trees were planted during this reporting period. And you'll see some photos. In the slide, it's a little small, but in the actual annual report, you'll be able to see photos of some of these improvements and other highlights as well. All right, so the report also provides an update on the implementation of deferred maintenance and improvements to existing parks and recreational facilities in the city. The section of the report gives a status update on the capital projects, including projects focused on deferred maintenance and improvements. We've also included information about new parks so that we can highlight some of the new parks as well. First, it's important to point out that there are two kinds of maintenance activities, those that are routine and those that are capital and include kind of a construction planning component. Some of the routine maintenance that we highlight in the report is our responsibility for including custodial routes, pool monitoring, litter control, restroom maintenance, and responding to routine repairs reported by staff or the community through Fresno. So these are some of the core maintenance functions that we do on an ongoing basis. The next section of the report gives an overview of the capital improvements. So these are more longer-term maintenance activities. Capital improvement projects generally go through a life cycle that includes initiation and planning, design, construction, and completion. We've split it out into those levels for reporting purposes and mapping purposes. During this reporting period in 2023, a total of 104 projects were in the capital portfolio. 91 were aimed at maintaining or improving existing parks, while 13 were focused on new parks. All projects, regardless of funding sources, have been included in this report. So in the section of this report, you're going to see a variety of maps that list the projects as well as identify them where they're located within the city and what phase they're in. So I will go over each of the phases at a high level, but I won't be reading through each of the projects. During this time period, 19 projects were in the initiation and planning phase. The initiation and planning phase includes deliverables like defining the scope of work, identifying key milestones, and building a schedule. This slide shows a clip of the project list, and at the request of PRAC in our 2022 report, projects listed in this section of the report include a reference to the annual audit project ID number to make them easier to access the financials associated with the project. So it should help you to be able to trace the project to the expenditures to see the financial progress on that project. So you'll see the map pictured in this slide. We'll identify each of the projects that during this time were in the initiation and planning phase.
I have a request. The next time we receive one of these reports, can it be highlighted of which park is in the highest needs definition so we'll know?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
On page 70, where you show the categories, I notice you have category 4. It says expanded access to arts and culture, 5.4 million. As I recall, we did not allocate any money for the arts until more recently.
That's correct.
So,
We're showing how much had accumulated at that time.
so the part that's a little bit confusing to me is that, and then I see your footnotes, it says, an annual audit is published by the city of Fresno, and then it points out that is the reference. I guess what I'm trying to find out, how do we assess or determine what work was actually done versus was this just a financial transaction where funds were accrued to an account and therefore we know where the money is, but it doesn't mean that any work was done in connection with the implementation of a project?
So are you talking specifically about the cultural arts dollars?
Using that as an
Okay, so
example.
for that example, it's a little bit probably different, but that had accumulated and we weren't able to, pending the ordinance, enter into agreement to release those funds until the cultural arts plan was adopted. So again, we're kind of in 2023 right now, but we had not yet expended those funds because they were accumulating and are, in fact, they were administered last year and then the call is open for this next year fund. So, but if you're asking about the project expenditures specifically for other projects and the tie to the audit, we included that link in this report to make the financials a little bit easier to find within the audit. Is there specific information that you're looking for that you aren't finding in either the budget and audit of expenditures?
Well, what I'm looking for is that if I see a figure of $21 million, the obvious question would be, what was done with that money? Or does it mean that it was appropriated or transferred to a certain location, and we know that it has been accrued and has been committed, I guess is the word. So I'm just trying to see what exactly do these numbers mean?
So that is how much, I think you're skipping ahead a few slides, but that is how much was accumulated and accrued for this time period for each of the categories. From there, to determine how it was spent, you would have to look at first the budget for that fiscal year. So we bring the budget to you all, you provide input, the budget gets adopted, and then the budget lays out programs and capital projects that are going to be utilizing those funds. Then the audit goes further to see what was expended and reports annually on the expenses. So you do have to reference a few documents, but our hope is in providing this report, you will be able to see progress on some of these projects as they move through the phases each year to get a sense of what has been completed. Because as you know, some of these capital projects are multi-year endeavors due to the design, permitting, construction bidding, and that type of thing. But there are several reference documents that we'd be happy to kind of like link to each of them for your convenience to be able to compare, if that would be helpful.
I think that at some point it will be very useful to, I'm thinking as a taxpayer, as a member of the public that puts money into these projects as you go and allocate money from your pocket, is what exactly was done in my neighborhood or my community.
There is a slide. I think I'll continue because you're going to like to see the completed slide, and it shows the completion of the projects that occurred during this time period. So that may help you get closer to what you're looking for. All right, so we mentioned the initiation and planning phase. So going to the next phase, design. During this period, there were 42 projects in the design phase. The design phase typically involves design by engineers, architects, and other professionals to develop construction-ready plans and specifications for improvements. These designs include estimated quantities and have enough detail to establish an estimated cost to construct. So we're able to use those costs then in our budgeting process and get an idea of what it will cost for these improvements. So during this period, we had 42 projects. They're all listed on the report and on your slide.
Shelby, just one note to add on this design phase sheet you see here. What it doesn't denote is some of these projects only had money for design, not for construction. So some of these didn't move beyond the design phase. So I just want to lay that out. If you see it here, it may not have had construction funding tied to it. So they may not have gone beyond the design phase, but may still have them in that design kind of category.
And then those designs can be used for seeking grant funding. You can also check out the 5-year capital improvement plan in the adopted budget to kind of see what is budgeted for what phase. Okay, so during this time period, there were 14 projects in the construction phase. Those are all listed there and mapped as well. And there were 26 projects in the completion phase, and they were considered substantially complete during this reporting period. So I think in our prior year report, I want to say maybe there were 14 or 15. I'll have to ask you to look at how many were completed, but there are more in this report. I can tell you that compared to 2022, we're seeing a little bit more completion in 2023. All right, we also have included a park ranger section. I know we got some feedback from the Pratt commissioners in our prior reporting period that wanted to look at some neighborhood safety. There is a link to Fresno Police Department's report on safety and crime statistics that's included in your actual annual report, but we did want to highlight a section on park rangers given those questions that we received last time. So during this time period, 6 park rangers were fully trained and 10 conditional offers were extended. Rangers undergo extensive training, including many of the competencies that you see there listed in green. Again, this was 2023. Aaron, I don't know if you have our current park ranger numbers, but they are higher.
We're at 19.
Yeah, so this was, again, we're time traveling back and forth, but we will get to a place where we're getting to you a little sooner. Okay, and then the slide I think, Commissioner Braza, that you're referencing is related to this section here of the report, which is the budget by expenditure category. We just included a reference for you. As you can see, a total of $45 million was budgeted in 2023, and it was allocated. The total amount of funds were sorted by category, which is in alignment with the Measure P ordinance requirements, which restricts percentages of the funding that is accumulated to certain categories within the ordinance. All right, thank you for your time. I know this is a lot of information and the actual report itself is a bit longer, but we feel it's really important information and are happy to present it today. Staff are available to answer any questions that you have about the report that you have not already highlighted.
Thank you.
Question. Do you know how much money has Measure P collected for this budget coming up? Like,
I don't
the
have that on the
dollar
top of
amount?
my
Do we have an estimate?
You're referring to FY26 as upcoming?
Yes.
I don't believe we have that number yet, but I would imagine it would be relatively close to what we've seen in years past, but I think the next meeting
Can you
will.
state that number just for public?
Well, you'll see here in front of you on the presentation, I think it's the second to last, fiscal year 23, there was about $45 million.
Okay.
Again, that number is based off of sales tax, so as those projections and the budget still being built, could be less than what you see here, but again, what we've seen kind of throughout the duration of Measure P has been somewhere between, I think, 43 and like 46.
And we don't spend all of it, correct?
So some of that is carryover from the capital budget. Some of it's from Category 1 as well as Category 2. Typically, the operating funds do get spent. Category 4, arts and culture, will have a bit of a carryover because of the lag time there, but correct. There is some carryover in that.
Just want to be transparent for the public who's not here or for our public who's attending online.
And I think something that's important to note there is you see the $45 million, it isn't just one pot of money, right? It's broken into these categories with highest needs neighborhoods, which is 50%. So oftentimes I know folks hear that, hey, you've got $45 million, why can't you just build this? Well, it's broken into the expenditure categories that we need to follow, so.
Thank you. Do we have any questions in regards to this presentation?
So the $9.5 million, I believe that was invested into new parks, that new park category, is there a breakdown of which areas, or like, is there a map that we have that can show where that's kind of being funded?
So that is the total amount that accumulated in that category for that year. It doesn't mean that that amount was fully spent.
Okay.
So those funds specifically have a high needs and a citywide category as well.
Yeah.
So anything that accumulated during that time period, if it wasn't spent, it gets carried over into the next fiscal year with the original high needs definition that it was collected under. So that's kind of a lot, but basically, if it wasn't spent, it's carried over, and there is a balance in category 2, but I don't have the total off the top of my head.
So do we know how much was saved or from that category then?
We could
That's
pull
something
up-
we can provide, Commissioner
Yeah.
Singh. I think our next meeting in May, when we go through our kind of our initial budget presentation to you all, we'll be able to probably show you what that number looks like that's being carried over, so.
Cool. Sounds good.
And then in the actual report, any projects that are new or like category 2 eligible, some of them are grant funded, but you'll see an asterisk in the in that capital section so that you can kind of see which of these parks are considered new parks that aren't currently in the inventory.
That would
So,
be helpful, especially because
it's in there.
I know a lot of commissioners are kind of sharing concerns about expanding to new parks and new areas, and I really do want us to. I mean, I know Director Geary, we've also talked about in the past like using like pond basins that don't need to be basins anymore, right? And building or expanding our parks there, perhaps. But yeah, I would like to see that kind of breakdown of where the funding is going to new parks and where those new parks are located as well.
Okay.
And if we do decide to go that route, could we have a presentation on how those basins that are not being used will be converted into parks and the cost of it? Because it seems like they're kind of steep, so you would have to do a lot of construction and...
Right, so we've gone through with flood control, and we've looked at some basins that are, in our eyes, underutilized. But they are recharge basins for the areas around, the groundwater. Some of them, right, they do have that steep slope, like a 2-to-1 ratio, where you're not going to get much in there. They have water throughout the year. So we've looked at a number of basins, and we've worked with our public utilities director, Director Brock Buki, to identify which sites may be potential. And again, work with flood control and trying to figure out what can we do. So we've looked at basins that may only support a walking trail with exercise stations around the top of it.
That's ideal.
Right. So and then we've also looked at basins where, you have existing green space, and how do we expand it to maybe add lighting for soccer, for football, other green sport activities. And so just working with them and trying to come up with creative solutions, But again, there are some restrictions that we've come to find out with the irrigating, right? Right now, the water that they're using, I believe, is... don't quote me on this. Put it this way, we have to put a new irrigation system in there, which is not very cost effective. And what we're thinking, hey, there's green space that's utilized this, but there's infrastructure costs that, oftentimes may not be thought of at the beginning, which really throw the project out. So just a number of things that we've looked at, and how do we expand and how do we utilize the green spaces. The other downfall to the basins, in a sense, sometimes they're only available 6 months out of the year.
Exactly.
So we have a number of parks, Carosa Park, Manchester Park, that we will start opening up here, I think it's May 1st, and we run those through October 31st, and then they revert back to basins. So we
serve a large number of residents around there, so...
Correct.
I'm not a big fan of using basins as green space or parks, but...
And I think, too, flood control being a good partner of ours, I've asked them, hey, what if we just utilize the top shelf where I don't see a lot of water? Maybe we fence it off and utilize the top lot, the basketball court, and the restroom, and make it a year-round park versus 6 months. So those are things that we're also exploring with them as well.
Okay, just like when you guys decide, we would like a presentation to the commission on that, please.
And for that, I would also, sorry, Commissioner Barraza, I would also ask that you look into JSK Park. I know we've talked about that quite a bit, but the possible acquisition or whatever, if converting that basin to an area where, something more can be built, like community center or something.
I would love to. That's valuable space that, we can definitely add 10 acres onto that park like that if we could.
Commissioner Barraza, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just don't know what may be the proper approach or format in terms of being able to discuss community centers, what happens there, where are those centers in our city, how is that new center, senior citizen center, that is being built, I think it's being built, right? I mean, how does that impact the rest of the city? And obviously all within the context of the allocation of Measure P funds. How does that, and I realized that there's like a cycle where the master plan gets updated again, but this happens to be an area that where I sense that there is a deficiency into how we're addressing the needs of folks, of constituents, both our youth and older folks. But I obviously the one thing that I want to do more carefully is review again the master plan. I was part of that subcommittee, but I obviously with this report, I'm actually getting more confused with the way you formatted it. Because again, you're reporting financially, where's the money, where did it go, and then versus what projects got implemented. There's a different place where you have to look for that. But regardless of that part, the part that I'm very interested is what are the unmet needs pertaining to community centers that serve senior citizens and our youth for after-school programs. I just want to get a better sense of are we doing the right thing, or are we overlooking certain deficiencies that are not being recognized? And perhaps a way of maybe I could request that the matter be put on the agenda through our chair, and then
You can have a bigger discussion.
Okay.
Yes, just,
I think it's about doing things better, and I'm all for improving things.
any other questions? Thank you, Shelby.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to discussion items. ID number 25561, discussion regarding potential dates for a special meeting. Okay, I would like to open up this discussion regarding potential dates for a special meeting. We know that budget season is coming up, so the mayor is going to be dropping his budget in May, and we have to come up with recommendations. So I would like to see would we have commissioners available on May 27th to make recommendations to City Council for the fiscal year 2026. Only need 7 of you. Only need 7, so we can have a quorum.
What?
May 27th.
What time?
Same time, 5:30. Meetings are always at 5:30.
Okay, I can do it.
All in favor?
I'm sorry, what was the
May
time?
27th.
May 27th.
So, Angela, do we vote? Do I make a motion? Okay,
It's a Tuesday.
it's a Tuesday. You can't come?
It's a Tuesday,
It's a Tuesday?
according to.
May 27th, correct, Chair?
Yes.
That's a Tuesday.
Well, I'll make Vice Chair Ward come then, so we can have a quorum. You only need 5? Oh, I thought I needed 7. I'm like, all of us are here today.
I move that we hold a special meeting on May 27th.
And I second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, we got another meeting added on in May. So now we will go ahead and move on to hearings. ID number 25-497, hearing to receive public input on expanding access to arts and cultural grant. Would any member of the public like to make a comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes for comment. I see no one in chambers.
There are no speakers online.
All right, I will now close public comment. Does any member of the commission have any questions or comments regarding this item?
No.
Okay, We will now move on to ID number 25-498, hearing to receive public input on allocations related to Measure P, updates to the Parks Master Plan and Cultural Arts Plan, and annual Parks Department budget and capital improvement plans. Would any member of the public like to make a comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes for comment. I see no one in chambers. Do we have anyone online?
We have Jade online.
Hi, Jade. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to ask a few questions. I know you might not be able to answer me directly, but in regard to the report shared tonight, I just would love if, particularly for those like me online watching, if you can make sure to share at least twice, maybe at the beginning and end of presentation, where the public can find the records of the report, when they'll be published for the public, and just making sure that that's like clear. Otherwise, I'm going to have to chase you all down after the meeting. And I'd also like to suggest that maybe there be a barrier-free way to remain engaged and support the work of the commission, like perhaps posting the links to these to be available through Parks social media. I know I follow. Just a way to make sure that we can stay engaged and support the work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There are no more speakers online.
Okay, I will now close public comment. Does any member of the commission have any questions or comments regarding this item? Quick question, Angela, do we make recommendations right here as well as commissioners? Or do we wait till the budget drops?
You can always make recommendations at the time, or wait until after the budget and then have a better idea of more idea of what the plan is. But you can make it at any time during these hearings.
Okay.
Madam Chair, what's going to be the format that maybe it has already been presented to the City Council, where we made recommendations on projects to be funded by Measure P for 2026. Are we still open to, or maybe the question is, when that information already has gotten to the council, right?
Yes.
So now it's a matter of what the council does with what we recommended.
Yes, and I know it's kind of bothersome because we make recommendations every year and we don't see them being implemented. So I don't know if it's the wording that we may have to use, or I don't know if we got to have individual meetings with the city council members, just representing ourselves, not the commission. I don't know what we have to do, but I know that we still have to just keep making the recommendations, and if we have time, show up at the budget hearings and do them as an individual, not as a member of this commission, and see what happens.
Madam Chair, I know in the past we've talked about sort of better alignment with the city council's understanding where that disconnect is between what we recommend and what they're willing to entertain, if you will. How do we move that forward?
I wish I knew.
It doesn't seem, I mean, that should be pretty fundamental, right? That we should be aligned.
It makes us feel like that all the recommendations that we're making is just check the box because we're a commission, and they're gonna implement what they want. So I don't know how we can strengthen that and make it better.
Can we call somebody in from who represents city council who could help us determine the best way to proceed to form a better communication?
We can. I don't know if they would.
I mean, do we subpoena somebody? Is that what we do?
Well, I'm a community organizer, so we could flood their office with phone calls. And
well, it seems like it should be sort of a more formal structure as part of this commission, doesn't it, that we would have?
I think the best way is for us to make our recommendations, and then if we have the time to attend the budget hearings, that the recommendations that we submit to them, that we restate them, but we restate them as Kimberly McCoy, a member of Southwest Fresno, right? Not a member of the commission, right? And then any network of residents that we work with, that we get them on board to make those same things, same comments, and keep that same narrative going. I think we'll have a better chance at that. But I don't know, because that's been our question and that's been our gripe since we've been here.
Yeah.
So I 100% agree with you with the community organizer inside me saying flood the office or city council meeting, but I do also agree with you, Commissioner Dolan, that as commissioners sitting here, our input should be respected, that, you know, we've been appointed for whatever reason, you know, but we're all here, we're all putting in the work. So if we can figure out how to, because for longer term change, I think we do need to actually look at the processes and the systems that are kind of causing this kind of disconnect, and then address that, because sure, we can, you know, flood the city council meeting that one, you know, during budget season, and it might help for this 1 year, but when the next commissioners come, how do we make sure that, you know, their
Well,
voice is being
maybe
heard?
we should extend an invitation to the president and vice president of the city council to attend our meeting and address our concerns to them.
Well, I mean, I think you just look at how much we are helped by the presence of park staff at these meetings, right? Just in understanding what their priorities are, what some of the operational realities are. And just having a representative from city council, not necessarily one of the council members, but somebody who, staff or whoever, who could help be that connection point would be super helpful.
Can we also maybe get on the city council agenda?
As yourself,
Like
not as a
the
not
member
as a
of the
commissioner.
commission.
Like the commission can't have a spot on their agenda? at
You
some
would
point?
have to represent, because that'll be violating the Brown Act, if I'm not mistaken.
Council?
I would have to look into that. That's not something that's been proposed or have ever been asked before. I know at some of the meetings during budgets, the bylaws allow the chair to, or a designee to sit in case the council has questions. But I would have to look to see if there's any restrictions in regards to putting an item on the agenda in, you know, for that specifically. But you can always put yourself on the agenda as an individual, and, you know, put whatever concerns you may have in regards to, you know, your questions. It would be public comment, so the council may not, you know, have the ability to respond back, but you, as an individual, have that opportunity. But I can check and I can let the commission know.
Commissioner Barraza.
Madam Chair, as I recall, after our initial orientations, the chair of this commission can make presentations to the council and present our recommendations. I think it had just happened that city staff, park staff, has handled that part. But that doesn't mean that our chair could not be the person that delivers the recommendation. As I recall, the bylaws of the commission, but obviously we could look at them again. But that's what I remember when we first were instructed in what that protocol was. But the other possibility, well, I guess that would be the first question. And then the second question is how many commissioners can actually attend the meeting as commissioners without violating the Brown Act? That would be the second part of my question. Because I think, and then the third point that I want to make, I concur with my colleague commissioners that our opinions are very important and our time is very valuable, and we certainly want to make good recommendations that benefit the taxpayers of our city, and therefore there should be a new and improved method of how we deliver our message, because somehow the message seems to be lost in the translation. That's my observation.
Any response?
I'm making a note of it so I can get a proper answer for everyone.
All right. Any other questions? Nope. All right, it is 7:04. I would like to adjourn the meeting as I always do in Commissioner Dr. Raputa's name. Thank you for coming out. Enjoy your evening and see you next month.